This is in my car.
All right, we'll begin by saying our prayer. Take a nice big deep breath and let it all go. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. Amen. All right. So good to have you all here. Hope you were surviving all the wonderful winter that we're experiencing here. You know, the surprise snowstorms every other day and all that good stuff. I don't know. It's a little crazy out there, but we're surviving. All right, so we have been working in different sections throughout the course that basically talk about the idea that we did this to ourselves, which is absolutely, positively not the experience that we have. Our experience is I'm an innocent victim of circumstances beyond my control, and if it wasn't for this person, this situation, you know, the government, you name it, I could be at peace. And the Course is extremely adamant about the idea that if you lose your peace, it literally has nothing to do with what's going on in the world. It has to do with the fact that within our minds, we are identified with the ego or the opposite of love. And we play this game of I'm an innocent victim, so it appears there's a perpetrator, and all the time it's really up here where the problem lies. And so Jesus, you know, throughout the Course in many different ways, in many different sections, is trying to help us really get that this has to do with me. And as long as I'm doing this, which we will all continue to do for a very long time, we will not come to the place of healing. We will not come to the place of recognizing our truth, and we will never understand the truth of our brother, because they don't exist when we are blaming our brother for the choice that was made in our minds. So we are going to start today with text 587, paragraph 10. And, you know, sometimes I feel like bam with trying to get this information across, and yet it's so vital. Until we really get, that's the setup, we are going to continue to run around and play the game of I'm an innocent victim over and over and over in many different forms, and we're going to be stuck in the hole of insanity. So, all right, so paragraph number 10. The secret of salvation is but this, that you are doing this unto yourself. No matter what the form of the attack, this still is true. Whoever takes the role of enemy and of attacker, still is this the truth. Whatever seems to be the cause of any pain and suffering you feel, this is still true. For you would not react at all to figures in a dream you knew that you were dreaming. Let them be as hateful and as vicious as they may, they could have no effect on you unless you fail to recognize it's your dream. I know, Helene's over here. I was going to say deep breathing, but it goes beyond that. I'm hyperventilating, that's the word. Because, yeah, I mean, some of these paragraphs are heavy duty, especially when I have played the part of an innocent victim my entire life. And not only have we played that part, because we don't realize that we set this up, we are playing the part of an innocent victim on a very deep subconscious level, and we're not aware we're doing it. So wrap that all in a nice package, and then he, throws one of these wingy dings at us, and it's like, what? So we'll begin with line 1. The secret of salvation, and just even think about the secret of salvation. Okay, here's the secret that you need to become aware of in order for you to get to salvation. And what is salvation? Remembering who we are. So the secret of salvation is but this, that you are doing this unto yourself. And again, no, that's not at all what it is experienced as. Someone attacks me, I'm extremely justified to attack them back with no recourse. They done it, and I have the right to attack them back. And I can literally line up, a bazillion people behind me, and most of them will agree that yes, I am justified for my actions, my thoughts, my beliefs, and so on. And the Course would say, no, 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 that's not how it's really working. So once again, he's trying to help us understand, as long as we are doing this to ourselves, we can point the finger all we want, and it will never, ever, ever take us to a place of peace.
Well, if I wasn't the dreamer of the dream, who the hell else would be doing it?
Correct. But we didn't know we were the dreamer of the dream when we stepped into the Course in Miracles class. And Jesus is trying to help us recognize you're the dreamer of the dream. And what's the dream? The dream of exile in opposition to the love of what you are. And within this dream is guilt, sin, and fear, kill or be killed, being separate, and we couldn't tolerate the pain of that after living in oneness. We were too afraid to go back to oneness because the first attribute of the separated son is to project. So the first person we projected on was God. So now we don't trust him. We think he's going to do to us what we did to him. So the way we solved the problem was dump everything seemingly in my brother, play the part of an innocent victim. I get away with murder, killing off God, and it looks like I'm squeaky little innocent victim person.
So the dream is the ego.
The dream is the choice for the ego, correct.
And so you're saying the dreamer of dreams, so that means we are part of the ego or attached to the ego or whatever.
You could think of it as you have a dream at night. You have many characters in your dream. All the characters in the dream are coming from your mind. Okay? So all the characters, that's the good guys and the bad guys, are coming from the dreamer that's dreaming a dream of exile away from the love of God.
Like it's a different way of saying the same thing. It's more confusing.
Well, it's actually very vital to understand it, because you see, we think, and we talk about the idea that we're puppets and we're being operated by the choice for either the ego or the Holy Spirit. I don't know I'm a puppet being operated by that choice. I think I'm Mary Ann, and I've got, value, and I'm doing things, and I have control, and I've got things that are important, and you name it. That's my life.
That's how you set it up.
Oh, well, indeed, that's how we set it up, but Mary Ann didn't know that. All I know is it appears that there are people and situations in my life that seemingly take my peace away, and I'm an innocent victim of it. But this is telling us, no, but we do need to become aware that I am a character in the dream of the dreamer called the ego, and that's the effect of having the son choose for the ego instead of love. As we begin to let go of our attachment to the ego and choose the Holy Spirit, the character called Mary Ann in the dream will now be, will still look like Mary Ann, and, as Harvey likes to quote that one workbook lesson, your brow will be less furrowed, and there'll be a relaxation and a peace, and you'll see your brother as the same as you instead of different than you. Yes, Andrea?
So any struggle that you're going through is really a reflection that you have in contact with the Holy Spirit in regard to what's going on. and you become a victim of the ego. It seems like you're a victim of the ego, but you and the ego are like best buddies until you think differently. So, so what I was just going to say is that until you're in trouble or you're suffering, that's when you can see a difference. If you recognize that the suffering is something that you can't control, you can't have no power over somebody else's suffering or even your own.
Correct.
Then you're open to that first sentence.
Yes, exactly.
And the ego is, I'm not separate from the ego. The moment the mind chooses ego,
it becomes
the ego. It's just, the ego is just the part of the mind that thinks it's separate. That's all the ego is. It's not, something, separate from the mind.
Right, well, and then I guess you see it as a part of yourself when you actually wake up to this. You see it, oh gee, look what they did, but look what I did before that. You just get that knowledge that it's a part of you, whether you want it or not. That's how it shows up.
Yes, and I know that Barb, when she comes, she's always very adamant. Okay, so when we're talking about this, does it mean this or does it mean this? And it literally means the thought we carry in our mind, but because we believe we are the body, we often refer to it as it's coming from me or whatever, but it really is coming from the thought. And we will experience ourselves in the world until we are no longer attached.
When we had the tiny mad idea, we took, and that occurred in a little red dot.
Right.
It took on the choice for the ego, took on the sin, guilt, and fear in that secret dream over there.
Yep.
And that's what we're projecting out all day long, because the guilt we put in our mind at that time.
Well, it's more like the guilt was a result of having believed that we killed off God to exist.
Correct.
We didn't put it in our mind per se. It was the effect of that belief.
When I say put, it's a decision that I made.
Right.
Okay.
And think about the red dot didn't exist before the choice, before the ego showed up. So now it's either I'm pointing this way or I'm pointing this way.
Exactly. That's all that's ever taking place.
That's all that's ever taking place. Yeah. Yep.
We can complain all we want, but that's what we got to come to grips with, that I made the choice.
Yep. Not as Harvey, but as the Son of God. Yeah.
As the decision maker.
Correct.
Dreaming, I made the choice for the ego.
Correct.
And of course, I've taken on all the qualities, because they're so wonderful.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think kind of as we walk backwards, the beauty of the Course is as we become more and more aware of what the effect of having chosen the ego is, we start to become aware maybe this wasn't such a hot choice. I wanted to be special and different, and I wanted to be God. But with that came the lack of love and guilt, sin, and fear. Well, that's not exactly a real good trade-off.
Well, the Course is asking us, believe it or not, in the section you're reading now, I don't know if it's before or after, to look at the fact that I set it up this way.
Yep.
Or I also have the choice to look at as it is.
Yes.
And the only thing that it is, I made the wrong choice.
Yes.
That's all that took place.
Yes.
Whatever's going on, what I'm feeling, I look at the fact, wait a second, I set this up this way.
Yep.
I have another choice that I can make if I choose.
Yes. And I think one of the beautiful aspects of the Course is Jesus' focus on, versus many spiritualities, the concept of sin. We did something so awful, it's impossible for us to ever get out of it, and we're not worthy of the love of God. And the Course tries to emphasize in a great many ways, you made a mistake. You went right instead of left. Go turn around and go the right way.
You made a mistake.
Correct.
And
don't take it so seriously.
In the lessons, the last part of the lessons, that's what I think Jesus is trying to show us, how much God loves us and accepts us right where we're at.
Exactly. It's we that do not accept ourselves. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And to be aware, if I'm feeling guilty, if I'm feeling, sad, irritated, blah, 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 any attribute of the ego, I'm saying, God, I got this covered. You stay over there. I'm going to do my thing. Until we realize, that's stupid.
You're playing a game with yourself.
Well, we are always playing games with ourselves, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you said, you're doing this
Yeah.
for yourself.
We're doing it to ourselves. That's
So
right.
when you finally start to realize that, maybe you'll make another choice.
Yes.
And that's the best part of having a feeling unwell about it, is we're just diddly bobbing along, and then when we hit something, then we're at choice.
Yeah.
Do I like this? What do I want? I ask for help. Do I say, oh, never mind, I'll just fix it. You do this, I'll do that. You're just diddly bobbing along, and you're not guilty for doing that. You're just not at the point of being in the space where you can expand on the Holy Spirit's teaching.
Yep.
And other people can be there and get really upset. Other people can be there and just think, oh well, this is life. That's how it goes. And they're both valid because that's where we're at.
Right. And, Ken would often say the number one value of the Course is that there is another choice. As the ego, as this was set up, there was no choice. We were brain dead. We were just simply an effect of what happened to us in the world. This is saying, now that you understand this is where the cause is, you can choose again. Even if you're not ready to choose, that choice is available. And Kathleen had her hand up, and then I'll get you. Kathleen?
I don't mean to be a smarty pants, but
Sure, we know you.
we'll forgive you. But Harvey said, and I really liked it because it makes me feel good. He said, God loves us just where I'm at.
Absolutely.
Why don't over here?
Okay.
That's smarty pants, so.
Well, but God knows you as you are, not as you think you are. So yes, He knows who you are all the time, and He loves you totally unconditionally all the time. It's we that have this silly Halloween costume on, that we say the Halloween costume is who I am, and I can't possibly let God in because I'm the Halloween costume. Yep. And then I'll get you.
You're sitting, this is the picture that's showing up in my head. So I'm sitting on a bed and my child's having a nightmare.
Right.
I still love my child, even though she's having a
Oh,
nightmare.
I see. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And God, the parent doesn't have access to what the
what's going
child
on.
is having the nightmare about. Okay, go ahead.
Question, is it helpful at all to think of the ego thought system as the unconscious? I know the Course relies a lot on the work of Freud.
Yeah.
Who kind of brought that to
Right.
light.
Right.
And it seems to me, not that it's a perfect lineup or
Right.
anything.
Right.
But the unconscious mind, as I understand it, of course, the definition is we're not conscious of it, we are not aware of it.
Correct.
Nor are we aware of
The game,
thought
right.
system
Right.
that is running things.
Right.
So it has made it somewhat easier for me, to see it in those terms, which I'm much more familiar with.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, and I would say, a great deal of the ego thought system is definitely on a subconscious level.
Yes.
There's no question
Yeah.
about that. I would say especially as we're understanding this more and more, it is becoming conscious. So then,
Yes.
I like the idea of being a private investigator, and you've got your magnifying glass out. The more you, pull out of that, the less the ego can dupe you. And so it is becoming more conscious to us because of our desire to find out what's going on. Yeah.
And because of all the pain we're in.
Well, that's the catalyst usually. Yeah. Rather it.
Freud describes, the human being is not a pretty person. Okay? Aggression and
Kill or be killed, duh.
Exactly.
Yes. But most people walk around thinking I'm a pretty decent guy, and that other person isn't good,
that's-
until we really realize, what is that unconscious gunk that is running my show as
Well,
well.
the majority of people, self included, don't know the workings of the mind as such.
Yep.
I just know what the course is telling me and
Yep.
what Ken described it.
Sure,
And that's what I go by.
absolutely.
I don't know how the hell my mind thinks of something,
Nope.
but I definitely know that I'm a madman underneath, you know? I put on the face of innocence
Sure,
to be civil in this,
Yeah.
in this thing that we're working with.
yep,
Because
exactly.
we're all murderers. And
Absolutely.
believe me, I don't know what love looks like, but it isn't what the world's got, the special love.
Exactly.
Love, hate.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's the love, hate, and then there's the love, hate.
Really just hate.
It's the same
And then there's
thing.
just hate, and then there's kind of, I think I'm gonna hate, no.
Really
The
just
love game is they come at you in the back.
Yeah,
They don't really show you what it's all about, but they're playing the same,
Yep.
same game.
But it's all mostly unconscious, that's what you said. It's mostly unconscious, so all we get is we get this pain, or we get this, feeling of guilt, and we're like, now what? What did that do? And then it goes and you think you're gonna die. I mean, all this stuff goes on that's really heavy.
Yeah.
And you don't know
Nope.
why.
Nope.
So the first year of this book, I'm like, holy crap, look at that.
What is this all about, right?
I think it's very important that the more you practice the course, the more conscious of those things you become. I think that's
Yes.
very important. I mean,
Yep.
Ken even says we can become conscious of the choice.
Yep.
And if I get to that point, I'm free.
Yeah.
But, you can become conscious of thoughts, like even the thoughts, I'm gonna die, that's just another.
Yeah.
I'm listening to the ego again.
Right, and I'm just gonna turn the page and we're all gonna be dead anyway, so.
Well, we're buying the third chapter of Genesis. You're gonna spend the rest of your life suffering and you're gonna die. And that's what this Western
Right.
civilization
Right.
is buying into.
And the Course refers to that we're born into pain and we'll suffer and all the days of our life and then we'll die. Well, that's not how most of us walk around every day thinking, which is probably good because it would be so depressing we couldn't walk around. But that's on a subconscious level basically what is happening. And even from that perspective of realizing, well, that's a result of choosing for the ego. Do I really want to continue playing over in that sandbox?
But it's a corporation, I mean, it's
It's
a
a
corporate
corporation.
model of God. This is how you do it, they have this many priests, that many so-and-sos, and they all, transmit all that, so it's very much that, what we buy into, and where the corporation, they say, corporations are not people, but they sure run the hell out of this world.
Well, and again, we have to be cautious of not pointing the finger at the church, because the church is what we set up as well, to say it was the church's fault because of this. And we need to keep bringing that back and go, well, I chose to be brought up in that church, that they were going to tell me that, and what was that about?
Right.
Yeah.
So what could it be, the ego's model of God?
Oh, gosh, yes, absolutely,
That's
yeah.
what it's the ego's idea of what God is going to do.
Absolutely.
That's going to be something you have to go to, and you have to answer to, and you have to talk about.
Exactly.
And you never get directly in touch with that space
Right.
that's inside of you.
Yes, correct.
Good job we did, though,
Yeah.
isn't it?
And again, we projected onto God, well, I didn't bring that chart, I almost.
It's proof, but not God proof, who used to say that?
The Course
says that. What do
you mean, who says that?
Well, I remember Marty saying that all the time. I
Yeah,
haven't seen
that's in the
Marty
Course.
for a year. Yeah.
But remember, the very first, here's the same thing as we have over here, only there's a middle step here. And the middle step is the first thing we projected onto was God. And we made, onto God.
Is the pink guy?
Yeah, this guy's God. Okay? It says God right on the, I know you can't see it, but this is
And
God.
of course, when we ask God for special favor and He wouldn't grant it,
Right.
that's when we
Yeah.
decided to take it in our own hands. Are you
Exactly.
gonna give it to me? I'll give it to myself.
Right, but then we went far
yeah.
enough to make a God of what the Course calls a God of sickness. It's a God that's not love any longer. It's a God of wrath, and all the attributes that the Son of God now has taken on are attributes that the God of the separated
of the Bible,
experience, well,
because-
but it's the God of the ego, which is then put into the book called the Bible, but it came before the Bible showed up, okay? And then we turned around, and as we projected into the world, we then played the same game with our brother.
Well, that's what the Western civilization lives by.
Absolutely.
They swear by it.
And yeah, because it's worked beautifully to make somebody else guilty so I can play the part of an
Because of
innocent
what you
victim.
did, this
Yep.
is the consequence.
Yep.
And that's through the whole book, old
Exactly.
and new.
Exactly. All right, so back to the paragraph here. I'm going to read the first line again because this next line won't make sense, and because we've had a little space in between.
Slow
So this,
down a second. You're running on with your words.
oh, sorry. I said we're going to go back to paragraph
heard that,
10,
but-
and then I said I'm going to read line 1 first because line 2 won't make sense because
Okay.
we've been talking a long time. So the secret of salvation is but this, that you are doing this unto yourself. No matter what the form of the attack, this is still true. So basically, this means there are no exceptions to the rules. And I assure you, everyone in this room has a few in their back pocket that they're going to call an exception to the rule because you don't understand. This one's real. This one doesn't fit this plan here.
Well, in the dream, it looks. that
Oh,
way.
100%, and I
Okay,
think
you
we definitely need to honor our experience within the dream, because absolutely within the dream, every time we're an innocent victim, it feels legitimate to me. And he's saying, yes, that's correct, but let's step back a little further and understand what the setup was that brought you to having this experience. And keep remembering, when we were here and we chose for this, we closed the door to this. When we were here and then we projected into the world, we put this nice little line of amnesia. So all we know is this. And this is about, like lifting up that curtain and finding out what's underneath there,
You're a long way there from there.
Well, and that's the
Then
stepping
into the
stones
point.
to get to there, yes.
Just a thought away, actually.
Well, true.
Is that the dark evil closet that have your skeletons, that ego?
Well, it kind of
the
is,
same thing, or-
but understand, that's true, but as long as I'm playing the ego game of you're at fault, whatever that happens to be, I hide that. I don't have to go there. I don't have to think about what it is that was the cause in the first place. And most of us are terrorized to go there because we know we're the ones, as one son of God at that time, that chose that. Well, how could I be a good person if we chose that in opposition to love? And God, or Jesus in the Course, is always saying, but it's not real. This is an illusion. Nothing you did within the illusion can ever affect the truth of who you are. But we don't trust that. We don't believe that. And so a great deal of the process of the Course is learning to trust that he is absolutely, positively unconditional love, which he shares in the Course. One of my favorite lines is, you have always been love, will always be love, and there's nothing else you could be but love.
And teach only love, because that is what
Well,
you are.
but you have to get to the point where you believe that, and then you would automatically teach the love, absolutely. But any thought that we harbor, which is 24 hours a day pretty much, that isn't of love, we're saying basically, God, I don't trust you, I don't believe you, I know I'm not love, and I'm not worthy of accepting your love. And he's just pouring that love all over the place, and we're going, no, thank you. I think I'll pass on that for now because I got my own plan here. And again, unbeknownst to ourselves, that this is actually what we're doing to ourselves.
The problem that keeps us back from choosing to accept God's love is the fact that we identify as a body. And
That's
the
a big
five
part.
senses tell us that we could be heard at any way, you know.
Exactly.
Things do happen in the world, and of course you're identifying as this, because the things that happen in the world don't affect the mind at all,
Absolutely.
and
Well,
that's what we are.
exactly. And if you really look at our lives, 99.99% is something to do with taking care of my body. So how do I just like throw that in the garbage? You go, okay, I'm spirit now, you know.
Well,
Not
the
happening.
key is, the Course doesn't say
Well, I know.
not to take care of the body.
I know it doesn't.
Just
Yes.
use it for a different purpose.
Correct. Yep.
There's I just read this in lesson 196, paragraph, in the number 5, goes along with this, what you just read, is that says the dreary, hopeless thought that you can make attacks on others and escape yourself has nailed you to the cross. And then the rest of it goes on to say that that's just the whole different way of approaching God is in that lesson. Then up on page 3 in the lesson is 196, page
Yep.
374 and 375. So that's your dreary, hopeless thought. Because you think if you attack on others that and actually you've nailed yourself to the cross. You don't
And
realize that.
we're not aware.
Right.
You know, literally, if every time we attacked our brother, we got one of these in the face, we'd go, oh, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. But it appears that we're separate, and that if I do that to you, it's not going to affect me. But in essence, it really is always affecting you. And it is keeping you nailed to the cross. It is keeping you in the prison, and it's keeping you from opening the door to freedom, unbeknownst to who we are.
And then it says to question it at all. The form must first be changed at least as much as will permit the fear. Like it talks about the fear of God is real to anyone who thinks this thought is true.
Yes, and again,
That's the fear
that
of God.
comes again to this God of sickness that we believe we're afraid of. We're not afraid of the real God, we're afraid of the one that we made up. And you know, so much
It's
of
the only one we know.
it's the only one we know because it's the only one we want to know.
And if we're afraid at all, that's what we're afraid of.
Well, you know, when you were a little kid and you had the same thought I did, something isn't right here.
Absolutely.
You know, the world is telling us, because it's made up of egos too, wait till God's watching you.
Absolutely.
Be
And,
careful.
and if it's
You know,
not
all that,
right, yeah.
never once identifying God as a God of love.
Nope. And if it's not a God, it's the policeman, or it's the government, or it's some authority figure.
Or
Yeah.
it's the elf on the shelf.
Well, whatever it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's something again out there that is threatening my.
Can hurt you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, Kathleen.
Okay, so, I'm afraid of the God I made up. Okay, because you know I'm hung up on this thing.
I am aware.
I'm afraid of God's love. So, it's made up. Anyway, that's all made up by you.
The God of fear, the God of sickness, as the Course describes it, is the God we're really afraid of, and it's the God that was made from our head.
Right, but see, this whole time, how many years has this been now? A very long time. Somehow I didn't get that.
Oh, that's because you don't come every week. No.
Usually I love the Zoom.
You just didn't get that.
Yeah, and you know, it's like our mind can't take in what it's not ready to accept, and then one day it happens, and then, you know, the light bulb comes on, and you could have heard it a bazillion times before, and then today's the day it connects, and it's
And
just,
plus, it's also the way sometimes it's said.
well,
in a different
absolutely,
context, it's just you hear it, you understand it, but you don't really quite get it as
yes,
much.
and
You know,
even,
a lot of us here intellectually understand exactly what the Course is saying, but we don't go there. We're too afraid
Sure.
to go there.
and then there's some that don't really understand what it's saying, and eventually they will. And it's no different than learning how to ride a bicycle. How many remember getting on the bike and you're wobbling in there and you did, and then one day you just got the right balance, everything came together, and then you went down the street and you were flying
Yeah,
high.
but see, understanding it intellectually
It's not the
isn't gonna
same as
get it
knowing.
for you until you put it into practice.
But knowing the dynamics is
You're
the
partway
step
there.
that takes you
You
there,
have to
yes.
be doing that first, I think, to be
Yeah.
able to apply it.
And once you get it, the time disappears. You
Well,
collapse the
yeah.
frickin' time zone
Yep.
and you go.
Yeah.
And then you're all done.
Yeah.
So why do we keep talking about how afraid we are of the love of God? Why do I hear that all the time? This is the first time I feel like I've heard this.
Well, because we have to get the understanding of the dynamics of the setup of the ego, which is, I believe I am afraid of the love of God because I believe this is God. So I am afraid of him because he represents the guilt, sin, and fear in my mind that I don't want to look at. Just like when I project onto my brother is a representation of the guilt, sin, and fear in my mind that we have to go back to our mind to find.
So let's go back up to the dot.
The dot?
Okay, there's the dot. Decided to do something, made the wrong decision.
Right.
The Holy Spirit or God was still there.
But we lost contact in our awareness of his
Once we
existence.
chose that, yeah,
This was gone. This is where we live now.
that's all we know.
And I recall many times hearing a while back that the decision maker, the red dot, is not something you can determine. It happens. It happens.
Well,
you don't control it. You don't decide to go there. You have no control over it. It just happens.
Okay,
So how can
but
you say I'm going to go to the
But
decision maker?
as you observe what your experience is, you actually are here. It's not a choice. It's simply, I realize what the dynamics of the ego are up to. And when you're there observing, you're not here playing the part of the
You're in your
innocent
right
victim,
mind.
Russ.
Once you decide you don't like what's going on, you can go to the decision maker and ask for the Holy Spirit to help you. Yeah, no.
You know, it's words, but the most important thing is when you're observing you, you're not being you, okay?
Yeah.
Because I can't observe myself as myself.
So that's the red dot.
That would be the red dot.
You're automatically in your
Yeah.
right mind when you're doing
Correct, correct, yeah.
So something that I did in a group one time was, we all told a story to another person about what happened to us. We told it in the first person, this happened to me, that happened. And then we used the third person. This happened to somebody.
Right,
Then this happened. And that shot me right to the red dot, like, it happened. But it wasn't all me, it wasn't all in me anymore. I mean, it was
Right.
it wasn't like all out there either, but
Right.
it was like that, just to change your word about the perspective, that was what it did.
well, yeah, and you got to be the observer
Yes,
through
I
that
got to be the
process,
observer
basically.
Observing what I had said.
Yeah.
Right.
And those can be very beneficial tools to practice, yep. All right, so whoever takes the role of enemy and of attacker still is this truth. So it doesn't matter what part you play in the play. If you're playing a part in the play, you're aligned with this thought system. So I can play the part of this little sweet little adorable thing, or I can be out there murdering or whatever, and I, as the sweet little adorable thing, would say, oh, look at them. They're the bad guy. And Ken would always talk about the idea of when we're born, we're given two pieces of paper, and on one of them we write the things that we did that were wrong, and on the other one we write all the things everybody else we know has done wrong. And our only goal is when we die that we can say to God, look, I have I made a few mistakes over here, but look at them, which is again the concept of separation. They're worse than I am. And in truth, we're all in the same boat. We've chosen.
That's the key to the whole thing.
Yep.
is Those two players down there, we have to see them as both.
Yep.
The
All the
victim
same.
and the perpetrator.
And literally, both of those characters are coming from this choice.
Exactly. My mind.
My mind. And just as we have dreams at night, sometimes they're nice ones, sometimes they're horrible ones. But when you wake up, all those little characters
We don't
disappear.
seem to attach to those.
No, we don't.
For
Well,
whatever reason.
right.
You know,
Yep.
we let it pass by.
Because
Okay,
we
I
think it's
had
just a
another
dream.
Yeah. Which is the same thing that's happening here,
Exactly.
yet we grab onto it.
Because we don't really believe this is a dream. We believe this is solid and real. My nighttime dream is just a dream.
Right. And
And
then
when you're
Except for when
having
you're
a dream-
dreaming.
when you're
Except for
having
when
a
you're
dream,
dreaming, yep.
it's just as solid.
Yes, it is, but when you wake up, well, and when we wake up from
Yeah,
this
well,
dream, it will
we're
be
still
the
sleeping.
same. Well, indeed we
Right,
are.
That's the problem, I think.
This again.
Whatever seems to be the cause of any pain and suffering you feel, this is still true. And again, he's emphasizing once again, it doesn't matter how big or small or, you know, I know initially when people come to the course, that's a very challenging concept. So I break my nail and I lose my peace. It's the same as somebody bombing my house. Huh?
Hierarchy of illusion.
Yes. But if we filter it through the understanding that I'm either at peace or I'm not, and it matters not what takes my peace away.
Because it's still all just unconscious.
Right. And, you know, workbook lesson 5, I'm never upset for the reason I think. Doesn't matter, you know, if it's a broken nail or it's somebody by my house, that's not the problem. The problem is always who's in charge. For you would not react at all to figures in a dream you knew that you were dreaming. And I was kind of thinking this week about the idea of being an actor. And we know that some actors get kind of typecast in a certain personality or whatever. And sometimes they have a really hard time breaking out of that image. And then there's some actors can play, you know, any kind of thing that you put forth in front of them, and they do an amazing job. And it's like, how could they play all those different parts? Well, if you think about as the separated son, we have played and are playing all those different parts, and we're doing a really, really good job of it. And so is everybody else. And we're just playing a part.
It's better to get typecast than in that case, right?
And when we wake up, we're all going to be giggling and, you know, saying, wow, we really did a great job on that, didn't we now?
Yeah, I'll get another Halloween costume.
Yeah, there you go. Mine will be better than yours, though.
Yeah, Halloween costume. I can just get another one.
Yep,
Well, that's what's
Do you
going
think
on.
that's what's going on all the time. Yep.
Do you think we'll laugh?
Oh, hell yeah.
Absolutely.
The Son of God remembered not to laugh is what the
So we'll
first
laugh
step
when
was.
With our life review, and we'll see what we've accomplished, what we haven't accomplished, and what we haven't accomplished, we will be laughing.
Well, but you see, this is talking about when you're all done. There won't be any need to see what I didn't do right, because at this point, I'm done.
Okay.
I mean, have you ever had a lucid dream at night?
Not recently.
I haven't had one recently either. This was years ago, but, you know, I can still remember, and I don't know what was going on, whatever it was that was going on, I was upset about. It wasn't a nightmare, but I was upset about whatever it was. And then, you know, the awareness came, you're dreaming. And I just remember going, huh. I don't have to do anything. I can sit here and watch this.
Okay, good.
And that's such a good example of we keep trying to do something in the dream to fix it or change it or make it better, as opposed to it's a dream.
And become aware of that. I
Yeah,
mean,
sure.
to me, you know, you know, if I'm on my third try of whatever it is I'm trying to fix, it's like, stop.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that slowly does dawn on you, right?
And if you don't think it's a dream, you still don't think it's a dream, you're allowed to hammer away at it for all you're worth until you finally get done and say, Jesus Christ, what am I supposed to do here? And the little voice says, just sit down and be quiet.
And yeah,
Absolutely. And,
Yeah.
you know, I'm all for that. What I'm noticing is how much that's causing me pain to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
and that will be what eventually leads you to completely dropping it, because the desire to remove yourself from this pain that is self-inflicted just doesn't hold the appeal that it did before. You know, we thought we were getting something when we chose to separate. I'm in charge, I'm God, I'm on the throne, I've kicked off God, God's gone, he was here, I kicked him off, and here we are. I am in charge. Isn't this cool? I've lost love. I'm now separated from everything, and I get as a gift guilt, sin, and fear, death, projection, and we're different. Well, that's not a very good trade-off, guys. But
There's
I'm
no
in
control
charge,
of all it.
I'm special, and I'm different, and basically I'm God. So as long as we honor that, cherish that in any way, shape, or form, that's going to override the desire to let God be in charge.
And in your own personal system, you're not wrong, you're just mistaken if you're still unhappy.
Exactly. But you would have to admit that you're wrong because that you're the result of making a choice that led you in a direction that you accepted as something other than what you really are.
But you still got the two choices there.
Absolutely.
So you could
Every
taste
moment.
have chocolate and vanilla, taste a little bit of each one.
Right.
And see what goes better,
Mhm. All right.
Well,
So,
setting the goal, he gives us the opportunity.
yep, as
You know,
long as you
to-
know the goal is, I
you know,
go back to
receive
love.
what we want,
Mhm.
which we really don't really know what the hell we want. But all he's saying is don't make the choice by yourself,
Yeah.
which is, by yourself is the ego. Otherwise, you're always making a choice between one or the other.
Right. And when we're not making a choice, we're automatically on this.
Exactly.
Which is one of the challenges that we have. This is operating without any conscious decision on my part at this point until I make a choice in opposition to
The
this.
crazy thing is, we set this, what we think we want, and we would receive that if we would choose accordingly. Well, guess what? We can't even choose accordingly to what we do want.
We don't know what we want.
That's it.
Well, and
Exactly.
that, Jesus does speak of that throughout the course as well. You think you're looking for a specific outcome. You don't even know what the problem is, so how
That's
could you
right.
possibly know what the proper outcome of the situation could be? It's impossible.
I want to get from the specific to the general as
Yes.
quickly as
Yes.
I can.
Yes, you're right.
And here's how it works.
Tell us how it
And
works.
I'm sitting here,
Mhm,
okay? I have my cup
mhm.
under there.
Mhm.
Harvey is demonstrating next to me. He's gonna kick my cup over.
Mhm.
He is gonna kick my cup. I don't care, and I place it right in here where that's gonna make it very difficult for him to do. But
And you
he's
can
gonna
blame
do
him.
it.
That's
And then you can blame
That's what
Mhm.
she's doing.
That's what I'm doing. And I
That's
catch
exactly
that,
what she's doing.
and I
Right.
see that, and I said,
Yep.
did it again?
And the beauty of that is you're blaming him and it didn't even
It hasn't
happen.
happened, no.
Right.
It starts with this.
It starts with a thought and then we
mind,
find
mind
something. Yep.
Blaming, because it wants to cover up the guilt.
Yep.
Just covering its own ass.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if we look at it from that point of view, it's very practical from the point of view of the ego. If I've got guilt, I'm going to cover it up. And if I cover it up, I'm going to blame somebody else on it. And
Well,
it's,
that's why we're playing the game.
well, sure.
That's
And it's
what we're
when
doing.
we finally realize I got to look at this, not because it's real, but because it's holding me in a place maybe I don't want to be in anymore.
And I love the simplicity. I mean, that's what I know, same thing. I was out to dinner with my brother the other night and they brought a meal and, I'm eating and the thought came, you eat any more, people are gonna think you're a pig.
That's never entered my mind.
Either.
You were playing Violet.
Mhm.
Well, since I've watched that movie, it's like, and I just sat there and I'm like, nobody's even looking at me.
That's right. Isn't that something?
Nobody's even thinking about me.
Right.
I'm
Got
the
news
one
for you.
who's thinking that.
They're all too busy thinking of themselves.
Exactly,
It's
exactly.
what we do.
They're all thinking the same thought,
Exactly.
everyone's
someone's watching me and they're gonna think I'm a pig if I continue eating this.
It's a selfish game, and that's what we're playing.
And we're listening to a lunatic. That's a lunatic. And when I'm believing it, I'm the lunatic.
You got it. And Jesus is, in the Course, has been, pretty committed to the idea that we're all insane.
That's right.
And he says it in a very loving way, I'm sure, but he continues to tell us we're insane. And if you look at, I could have everything that love represents, and I'm choosing for this. We would call ourselves insane across the board. Only we still haven't connected all the dots and accepted the belief that I have chosen that, and this is always going to be the result. It's always going to come forth because it can't be any other way until I drop this and choose the other.
And the great thing too, the other awareness that came was in that moment that I believe that everybody's the enemy.
Of course.
And in that moment that I saw that, it was like everyone was my friend.
In those moments where suddenly everyone or anyone that's an enemy turns into your friend, I mean, that's a miracle. That's truly, truly, truly a miracle.
But if I hadn't been paying attention, the mind hadn't been paying attention,
Sure.
that wouldn't have happened.
No.
And in just that instant, it's like forgiveness occurs.
Yes.
And
it's that simple. It's so simple.
you don't have to deal with the big stuff if you deal,
Right.
or you're more able maybe to deal with the big stuff.
So you
if
got
do.
shot right into the decision maker. Just
Yeah.
from your
Yes.
discomfort with how you were feeling about how you were feeling, your discomfort said, wait a minute.
Yep.
And you went right to the decision maker. You could see it for what it was, instead of
Right.
your thing.
And one of the things that, we're talking a little bit about the concept of feelings or becoming aware. When we start this, it's like having a white tablecloth with so much gunk thrown on it that one more blob of something absolutely doesn't even affect us because we're so addicted to the gunk. As we keep processing through this, we're literally cleaning off that tablecloth. And eventually the tablecloth is pristine and white, so if one little flick falls on that, we immediately are aware of what is going on, and we want to do something different about it. But one of the challenges we have as we begin is we're so addicted to the gunk, we don't even know it's another hunk of gunk. And as we come closer and closer to this, we become more and more aware, wait a minute, look what's going on here. So I don't remember if I read line 6, but I'm going to read it again. Let them be as hateful and as vicious as they may, they could have no effect on you unless you fail to recognize it is your dream. And, it's like, okay, people, bring it on. That's probably not where we are right now.
Well, it shows, if you're paying attention, like Rose said, it's showing you, I don't believe it's a dream.
Correct.
I mean, that's big news, just knowing that.
Yep. And
That you
slowly.
can't fix something if you don't know you have a problem.
That's correct. And slowly it dawns on us what's really going on. And initially it's really hard to take. I mean, this is what I've chosen? This is my responsibility, huh?
Not Mary Ann,
No.
that's the secret.
Yeah, that's a big one, yeah. That's
You
a
get
big
to put the problem back on God.
Right.
If God isn't the ego God, then what are you, God? Where are you? Help me, please. I
Because
can't
God
take
doesn't
this
know
anymore.
anything about this dream.
Right.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. God, have brain freeze. Okay. But what is the power? What do we feel when we ask for help? Who is it we're
That
asking?
is the Holy Spirit.
Yourself.
Is the memory. Is the memory. He
In your
represents
mind.
The memory in our
Exactly.
mind of who we really are.
Right. So you drop all the other stuff to get to the decision maker because you can't stand it.
Right.
So who are you talking to?
Well, you're really
to your
talking
true
to
self.
yourself.
Your true self, and that's where the Holy Spirit and God dwell on the other side of the chart.
Right.
Right, okay.
And that's what it's called, but it's really your right mind. It's really your right
then they
mind that
call it your right
remembers.
mind.
Yep.
So you know, God has a word in this book, but it's a presence, it's really the whole inside of your soul that feels a need for something else besides this world and all the shit going
Right.
on in it.
Well, you got a hole in you, and the only hole is you broke communication with your source.
Think you're suffering.
Yep.
That's the only thing.
Yes,
You're still trying to fill the hole,
yes,
constantly.
yes. So it doesn't matter what you call it, that's where it is.
No, it's a lack.
It's in the middle of all that pain you're suffering from.
It is the pain you're suffering from, because
Well-
I think I'm separate.
Right. And if we think of a tornado, you know, we know the wind is blowing all around and whirling, but in the center, there is that place of peace. And
Yeah.
we just keep identifying with the whirling craziness
And wondering why it's here and where it came from and all those.
and what to
questions.
do with
Like,
it.
like,
Yes.
you know, the reporter going, who, what, why, where, when, how, and you never
Yeah.
get to the whole heart.
Correct. There you go. Yeah. All right. Kathleen.
You know, in my playground, you know, since my family's gone, parents are gone, and no intimate relationship, you know, I get to play other places. And so one of those places is still where I live with a woman who lives across the hall who's mentally ill, high functioning. So she terrorizes everyone in the building, and I happen to live right next to her. So she likes to say lots of verbal abuse and do a lot of horrible things, of which I've gotten very, very upset about for 6 years now. So it's like, that's my playground, and
And not an easy playground any more than anybody else has an easy playground.
so am I just practicing not being upset? Am I, like, what?
Well, the Course would say, acknowledge that you are upset. Acknowledge that she got you again. You know, it's just like having a fishing rod and she hooked you, she got you again. And the only way she can get you is if you're over here. So it's a recognition, oh my, I must have chosen to be part of the ego. I don't know how to get out of this. I don't know what to do. Holy Spirit, help me to remember who I am.
That's when you want to send your neighbor roses.
Well, yeah, because they're literally offering you your opportunity for healing, because she's showing you you're not at peace. And the only way we could ever be affected by anything is not by what they're doing. All they're doing is triggering the memory that we've chosen against the love of God.
So when I see her, because, I mean, she's one of these ones that stabs you in the back you didn't even know happened. And
Yep.
like, it comes out of the
Excellent training. Excellent training.
bites you, like, you think she's okay, and then bites you. And when I see her, I can feel that.
Understand? Absolutely, Kathleen. You're speaking the words of the ego. Absolutely, 100%.
That's a hell of a
You can
picture,
just
man.
think about her, and you're doing one of these. You know, you.
That gone.
Yeah, even if you think about her, you can feel your heart
All
restricting.
right, that's true, yeah.
Yes, and those every time any reaction occurs in relationship to her or anything else that takes your peace, that's a wonderful place to say, okay, obviously I'm hooked in again. I'm not playing there. Show me who I am. Well, yeah, say thank you because you showed me what's going on.
Well, it has worked for me to say, when she starts verbally abusing me, I say to her, you're talking to yourself, and I notice she shuts up. Well,
But you should say you're talking to yourself. Yes.
that's why I say that now. I'm talking to yourself, because no matter what I say back to her, it's more ammunition for more verbal abuse, but I notice she shuts up when I say
So what you really want to say is, I'm talking to myself.
Yes.
okay.
Okay?
Because.
And you don't have to
that's
say
where
that,
I go.
right, yeah.
That's usually where I go with it, because after I get upset.
Yeah. Yeah.
And things have calmed down, then I can sit and look at the fact that what she's telling me about me, I believe, or it wouldn't affect me. If I didn't believe these things about myself.
Yep.
Nothing she said to me could affect me.
She tells me how crazy I am.
Well, we are, we're all nuts.
So sit with your craziness.
That's not tempting, is it?
I I could go right there.
Just realize
Yep,
that you're
she's
both
right.
insane.
She's right, yes.
Yep,
Nothing to
The
talk
lunatic.
about. You're both insane.
yep.
How long have you lived there? 6 years? 6 years? Okay, I have a big room in my house, you're welcome to move in.
Aw.
I have 3 cats and 4 dogs, which are nice. Okay, I do, I'm serious. In Clute Heights, I don't know if you want to move there, that's across the bridge, but.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so there, we solved it, right?
Yep.
And then moving things in the world.
Yes, you're
Oh,
teaching.
you will,
All right.
don't worry.
All right, I'll give you some practice.
Ah, there you go.
Like, I'm gonna tell you you're crazy? No, I'm not gonna do that. We'll just learn some things, anyway.
Because you're both crazy.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you,
And-
Barbie.
That's it.
And again,
That's where it's at.
That's right,
When
it bounces
you
off me
accept
and
that,
sticks to you.
there's nothing to
Yep,
talk
that's it.
about.
You know what's funny though about that is, cause she'll walk by my patio door and she'll say, hey, crazy lady. You know, that does bother me, because how dare you say I'm crazy?
Thank you
'Cause I
very
do
much.
feel
because
crazy.
you haven't owned your craziness yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
wow.
more
I
you,
really
the
think
more
you
you
should
come
go
to
off the
accept
track
that, the
that
easier it gets.
And just say
Mhm.
thank you.
Doesn't mean you still won't react,
What did you
but
say?
it,
Put it on
the
the
more
card.
you accept that, the easier it gets.
Okay, so
And I'm not saying I still don't react, but somebody called me a bitch a couple of weeks ago, kiddingly. And I didn't say anything, but, I had to sit with that for a minute because there was a reaction there. And then it was just like, really?
Yep,
What else is new?
Sometimes I am a bitch.
What else is new? Yeah.
absolutely. And the more we, and we're going to take that example, Kathleen, and I know we're talking about bitch earlier here too. I know I had an issue with somebody calling me that as well. And I really sat with it and I really journaled with it and asked myself, am I a bitch sometime? And the answer was, yeah, I am. And as I became very aware, and I literally walked around for a couple of weeks saying, I'm a bitch, I'm a bitch, I'm a bitch. And eventually it dissipated. It doesn't affect me anymore.
You owned
Because
it.
if you know who you are, it doesn't matter.
Just become aware of when you are.
Yes,
Yeah.
amen.
And
That's key.
as Rose said, the only way something or someone can affect you is if you already accept that somewhere inside, you may not be consciously aware of it, but somewhere inside you identify with the words they're saying.
Okay, and then once you accept it, what does that do?
Then it can't come in and eat you
Nothing there,
anymore.
pass
You
by.
won't have it, it won't affect you anymore.
Just don't bring it in.
But why?
Let it pass by.
What I'm asking is, and again, talking in another realm here, but if you know who you are, you're not that anyway. So
True.
why are we accepting that? You accept it so that it goes away?
Right, and then eventually you will be over here where you know who you are.
Because I'm still denying all these little
Well,
pieces.
not only are you denying it, you're resisting it.
You're denying the mind's choice for the ego. That's
Yep.
basically that, on that level, that's what you're doing.
Yep.
And once the mind comes to see that the choice for ego is nothing, it's not meaningful, where's the real
What's-
problem?
It's the only thing going on.
Yeah, I mean, if you came in with the most horrendous Halloween costume, Kathleen, and everyone in the room said something, an attack around your Halloween costume, would you be upset? Would you be affected? No, because you know you're Kathleen. So anything that attacks us that we take in means I'm identifying with this, not this.
So by accepting that, it takes the power away.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
but just realize I, Rose, don't accept that.
Right.
The practice takes me there.
In other
And
words,
the practice is looking at, where am I thinking this, where am I believing this?
Because you're over there with the.
yes, yeah. And again, try not to add guilt to the awareness that I'm identified with my ego. Simply recognize the facts are I'm identified with my ego. Not good, not bad. It is causing me pain. And as I become more and more aware that it is causing me pain and I become less and less tolerant with playing or living in that experience, I will be more and more willing to say, take it, I don't want it. I'm done. As opposed to me being in charge, me being right, me being blah, 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 as the ego loves to be.
I have felt before people would call me a name that it was just their frustration. their frustration and at their own things that were coming out at me, and it's just a word.
Right.
You know, sticks and stones will break my bones, words, well, you have to get to the
Yeah, but if
decision maker.
it triggers something in you, then you've made that part of you. It doesn't, cause you don't know that.
Right,
She's a gift showing you what's in
Right.
your mind.
right, so you're looking at that word again, looking at it thinking, so am I, how did that work, this and that, and then I just, gradually let go of it.
We walk around the world personalizing. Stop personalizing, and you stop half of the stuff we're upset over.
But, you know, it was set up that way, though.
Exactly.
It's set up that I'm the central figure in my dream,
Yeah, but
and
I
everything
still look at
focused
what
on
I'm
me.
doing.
Well, as we begin to become more aware, we can then begin to pay more attention to that, yeah.
And that's your, like, special vantage point.
That's what you're
That's the setup, that's your vantage point on it. That's
Just
your
be aware of
opportunity
what
to
you're
clear it
doing.
up with God, what's happening. Am I really bad, or am I, are you
Yes.
going to be better than that?
Yeah.
That's your gift, is that you have your own vantage point to check it out.
And before, we were brain dead. There was no option. Somebody did something, bam, I respond, just like the knee-jerk response in the doctor's office. No brainer, bam. Well, now we're slowly becoming aware I have some control over this type of situation. I don't have to let it eat me alive all the time. I can be free from this experience instead. But it also takes a great deal of what's the word I want to use? Desire, in order to overcome my natural response.
Persistence.
Well, persistence is another good word too. And to slowly become aware of this belief system, because I don't believe I'm an innocent victim of circumstances. I mean, I do believe I'm an innocent victim of circumstances beyond my control, and I don't believe I have anything to do with it. I woke up in the morning, I get in my car, I'm driving down the street, someone cuts me off. That's not me. Duh. You know, there's no conversation to be had in that experience, let alone the woman across the street or across the way that, you know, bombards you with unkind thoughts and words and whatever. That's not me. I don't have anything to do with that. And the Course says, well, let's rethink this a little bit.
Would I accuse myself of this?
Yeah. And that's not an easy thing, because since the moment we took our very first breath, the game has been, I'm an innocent victim of circumstances beyond my control, and if you do something different, I'll be okay. But I'll never be okay as long as this is the gear the car is running from. Yeah.
For, like, I was just trying to imagine how I would respond too if someone did that to me, and I guess, and I'm trying to imagine if you take it from the Holy Spirit, if you were in that side, you'd be like an airplane, right? And that's when you see everything
Right.
like way up in the sky and
Right, above the battleground. Yep.
yeah, the overview of everything. And
Yep.
you were saying that at the end of the dream, you know, we're not gonna worry about what we didn't finish and all that, because we're just gonna be looking down on everything. It's just gonna be awe, you know, you know. So, but
Just
I
part
mean,
of your
that
curriculum.
is too, yeah. too
Yep.
different.
And please know that I am in no way poo-pooing, belittling, ignoring, not having compassion for people that go through whatever we all go through, and we all go through a whole lot of pretty difficult situations. When we're going through them, when we do believe the dream is a dream, it's horrible, it's painful, it's difficult. And yet he keeps trying to help us step up the ladder to realize if it's a dream, it's not real, and if it's not real, it can't affect who you really are. And we're, you know, kind of at the bottom rungs of that ladder, and he keeps saying, oh, come on up here, you know, and we're still down here, and he says, oh, it's a dream, don't worry about it, it's not going to affect you. Well, it does affect me,
We don't believe it.
because we don't believe it yet.
That's right.
Okay.
So the Course says, be as normal as you can be and be kind.
Yep.
And
keep
period.
asking to
Don't
see.
do anything else, especially judge yourself.
Yep.
That's one thing you don't wanna do, is judge yourself.
Well, we started the discussion talking about how God, my idea of the ego's definition of God. And the book, as you read through it and practice it, it keeps replacing that thought with the real God.
Mhm.
And after a while, you can connect the dots, and then you start to feel better because you actually get the feeling nature of the true God. And you felt it before from somebody, someplace, from yourself. You felt that little edge of somebody loves you just because you are you. And that's what I found through the years, that this has really helped reconfigure my ego's idea of God into a more cohesive kind of truth that I can rely on better than my own idea. The woman is disturbed, or whatever. You get this aura of kindness around it instead of she's out to get me. She's just a mess on her own. Doesn't have anything to do with you.
No.
Except if you identify
Right.
as that she did something to her or whatever. But God is just is really there on the other side of the chart, and just so subtle and quiet and consistent, like the book is about it. And so that's really what's, to me, has been a big help.
And again, the bottom line is, am I listening to this voice, or am I choosing to allow this voice to come forth? And as long as I'm dead set at listening to this voice, it's impossible for this voice to come in. All right,
And
we
the
will
Course says, just look. Just
just
look.
keep looking, keep
You
looking.
don't have
Yep.
to do a thing.
Right. Yep. All right, we will take a 10-minute break, and we will. All right. All right, we are going to carry on to paragraph number 11, and we're still in text 587. This single lesson learned will set you free from suffering, whatever form it takes. The Holy Spirit will repeat this one inclusive lesson of deliverance until it has been learned, regardless of the form of suffering that brings you pain. Whatever hurt you bring to Him, He will make answer with this very simple truth. For this one answer takes away the cause of every form of sorrow and of pain. The form affects His answer not at all, for He would teach you but the single cause of all of them, no matter what their form. And you will understand that miracles reflect the simple statement, I have done this thing, and it is this I would undo.
That's profound.
Yeah, that's profound, all right. Yeah, and irritating, and all right. So this single lesson learned will set you free from suffering, whatever form it takes. Shelley, would you close that door? For some reason, the cold air blows through here. It will set you free because as we understand where the problem isn't here. The problem is the choice for the ego. And as long as we're trying to solve the problem here, it's not going to happen. The Holy Spirit will repeat this one inclusive lesson of deliverance until it has been learned, regardless of the form of suffering that brings you pain. And, that's something, again, as we talked about before the break, doesn't matter if I have a broken fingernail or somebody's bombed my house or somebody's calling me a name or whatever. It doesn't matter what the form is. Has my peace been taken away? And if it has, it's because I've accepted myself as a separated son instead of the one son. Whatever hurt you bring to Him, in other words, you bring it to the Holy Spirit, He will make answer with this very simple truth. For this one answer takes away the cause of every form of sorrow and of pain. And again, workbook lesson number 5, I'm never upset for the reason I think, because the problem isn't about what triggered the upset, it's about the choice that's running the show. The form affects his answer not at all, for he would teach you but the single cause of all of them, no matter what their form. So it doesn't matter what the form appears to be, the cause is always coming from the same place. And you will understand that miracles reflect the simple statement, I have done this thing, and it is this I would undo. And the bad news is that means I've got to change my way of doing things. The good news is I can do something different and bring myself to healing. Because if this really was just set up like this, and this was the answer, there would be no way out.
I think what he's really talking about, without saying, I can make another choice.
Absolutely, I can make another choice, yep. And when I realize, and I know Rose brings this up a lot, that the choice for the ego is causing me pain.
Correct.
And when the intolerance for the pain comes to the point where I just can't do it anymore. And, you know, we oftentimes think of pain as some physical difficulty on the outside, but in most often, or I would say probably the majority of the times, the desire for healing will come as an effect of some discomfort. But I know that there's been people who, you know, have made $1 million and they have everything they want and they realize they're empty. And I mean, I guess that's a form of a pain as well, but it's not because of something that has happened to them per se, other than the realization that I have everything and that's not enough either. So it's some form of connecting like that.
It finally hit their mind.
Yep.
That all that other stuff wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough.
And how could that be when they spent their whole life
Right.
getting all that?
And don't you think we all have just a little tiny bit of that left?
Oh, sure.
That we reach back and say, something's very wrong here.
Oh, gosh, yes,
This
yes,
is
yes.
not right, and
Yeah, something is
I
not,
gotta figure this out.
No, I don't.
Or find somebody who can figure it out for me.
right, right. Well, and I think you're right. What happens is we do realize there's something that's not right, and then we do try to figure it out. And what the Course is saying, you don't have to figure it out, just acknowledge that this is what's going on. I'll show you the answer. Yeah. Yeah. All righty, let's see, where did I read to? All right, so whatever hurt you bring to him, he will make answer with this very simple truth. I guess I read the whole thing, didn't I? I have done this thing, and it is this I would undo. So we have to do our best to keep reminding ourselves, this is the deal that's going on. This is what's making the experience that I'm living appear to be something that's taking my peace away, when all the time it is really my own doing. Which again is good news, because if it's my doing, it is my undoing that will lead me back to what is truth. And, you know, the very first step to come to here was the Son of God decided it wanted to do something. Okay, so the undoing is I have to decide I want to let this go, because that's the catalyst that makes that reverse occur.
I have to decide I want to let the bottom left go.
I'm saying what?
I have to decide I want to let the bottom left go.
Mm-hmm. Just for a moment to like,
Bottom left.
yeah, yeah. Just for a moment. And you know, that's the thing I think is so beautiful in this Course. He's only asking for the little willingness in one moment. Now, he may ask us to do that in lots of little moments, but just in this moment, when your intolerance of the pain that you're experiencing becomes so heightened that you know you can't do it on your own. And then that willingness comes to.
So that's how the person who has all that money and they're doing fine, and then all of a sudden they feel bad, sad, they feel all those emotions, then they've been catapulted into the decision maker, whether they know it or not.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they know something's wrong.
They know something's wrong.
Yeah.
And they can't fix it.
Yep.
So what then?
So that puts them into the decision maker place, that's what puts them, that's what forces them to be in the place of the decision maker.
Right.
Is that experience they're having, that feeling they're having.
Yes.
There must be
Yeah, I
a
was thinking that too, that's kind of how it all started.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Just that whole
definitely.
thought of, "There's gotta be
Absolutely.
another way."
Yeah, or how can this be right?
Hmm.
Who's now,
Right,
who
right.
is that? Who did this? You know, any kind of thing where you're just all like, wow. And you know, and people will watch the news every night and shake their heads and go, well, that's just terrible, I wonder why that's, and they just watch it every night, cause it's what they always do. And then one night they wake up and say, it's the same thing every day. Well, I wanna see something else, show me something else.
Right, but that's something I've always kind of marveled at, how often each one of us have repeated the same classroom over and over and over and over and over and over again before we finally get to the point where it's like, that's it, I can't do this anymore. And I think it's the strength of the ego that it keeps thinking, well, if I do this, if I do that, maybe I could try this approach, maybe I could try that approach. And then you finally exhaust all possibilities, and then you slump in your chair and go, all right, what do you have for me? And it's almost as though the ego has to play out. And I know earlier in the class we were talking, or I think it was you, Andrea, that was saying, sometimes we just have to let the ego rip, let it go through its contortions, whatever that means. And then we exhaust all the possibilities, and then we really come with totally empty arms to the altar.
I guess because we all have, our arms are all full of different, so.
Mhm. All right, so paragraph 12. Bye, guys.
Marianne,
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, Kathleen.
I have a remedial question.
Okay.
Remedial.
They're all remedial questions.
Yeah,
It's not yours, just questions in general.
So, there we are up there with the red dot.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and there was like a tiny stupid idea.
Tiny mad idea, but whatever.
But, and so if we're dreaming and we're asleep, sort of, that's just a story, right?
Right.
We're just saying we're asleep or whatever. But there was something happened, and then we made it all up, and so, what a stupid game, like.
Yeah.
But you're not stupid.
I can't get my question out now. I don't, it just doesn't make sense.
Well,
that we
but,
keep doing this.
well, but we're addicted to doing it, number one. Number two is, okay, let me use the example of a cell phone. 10 years ago, most of us didn't have a cell phone. We didn't know what it was like to have a cell phone. We didn't have any association with it, other than once in a while somebody would walk by and have one and you go, oh, that looks cool. So now we all have a cell phone. And it's like my other hand. If I leave it at home, it's like I left my arm at home. That's how attached we become of the next thing we accept as our reality. Well, imagine that first moment was with the tiny mad idea. And then that has snowballed and snowballed and snowballed and snowballed. And we're so enmeshed in the responding to every moment of what happens in my life next that we don't realize we're being duped and we're being pulled into the same storyline over and over and over and over again. And we're brain dead. It's like we're reacting to the next and not becoming aware, this is the same story that's been played out for, since I was a kid. But I didn't realize it. And now we're catching these moments and becoming more aware of how the ego works and what it's up to. And, I give the example, and I don't know if you've been here, Kathleen, when I've done this. If, we were a couple kids and we went to a garage sale and we bought a game for 5 cents or whatever, and we take it home and we realize half the pieces are missing and so are the instructions. Well, we're creative, so we start, figuring out the rules of our game. And we play the game, and let's say 5 years later, somebody comes over and says, that's not how you play that game. Well, you will still want to play the game the way you played it because you're used to playing the game the way you played it. Well, we're very used to responding the same old way that we've always responded as an ego. We're addicted to it.
And it wears you down.
And what?
It wears you down.
And it wears you down, and as it begins to wear you down, the misery of it can then allow the space to rise you up because you can't tolerate it on your own any longer, which opens the door to, all right, what do you want? So, it's a mixed bag kind of thing of it's a blessing in disguise kind of thing. And again, we have no idea how addicted to the thought system of the ego we are. We have this body, we have my beliefs, we have our life experiences, we have all of these stories that aren't who we are. And then, the Holy Spirit or Jesus comes along and says, well, you just let go of that and come on over here. And it's like, no, what? Do you have a question?
I wonder if, like, Kathleen means, another way I thought of it when you were asking that question was, we discovered, how to go to the moon and fly planes, take 100 people up in the air.
Yep.
And why haven't we discovered the ego in this Holy Spirit thought system? Or why is it 2022 and we're talking about changing something from the Bible, that this God is not the same God as what they've
Yep.
been teaching for.
Well, I would say the answer to that question is there's been little reminders all along in those 2,000 years. It's just that it's so foreign that people rebel against it and they can't take it in. And so even like he talks about this, these workbook or the lessons, I'm going to keep bringing this back to you over and over and over until you get it. Well, my guess is we've spent many lifetimes where we've had a little taste of it and it wasn't enough for us to pull us in, and now we're finally getting to the point where it's like, I need help and I'm not going to try to do it on my own any longer.
And look what they did to the biblical Jesus.
Right.
We don't
Yeah,
want
right.
love.
Well, there's that
We
too.
want
Yeah.
hate.
Yeah.
Hate's much more comfortable.
Mhm.
Right, that's exactly.
Well, it's the party line, it's the corporate,
Right.
which, we all have to dance to that too, to a certain extent. Even though I've never worked for a corporation, I worked for families who work for corporations, so I have to do that
Sure.
too.
Yep. Well, and then we wrap this all around in a nice little book called the Bible, which is what God said. Who's ready to debate that?
Oh, right. I'm gonna throw the Bible out in the bathwater.
I mean, it's a very ironclad thought system. It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. Did you have something, Linda?
I was just thinking, when a student is ready to pass
Right.
their peers, all those years that I had little signs down the road, I was ignoring them with my ego. But now it's all starting to fit together.
Yeah.
Where things are surfacing that I have an opportunity to deal with.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't ready.
Absolutely. And, as I said earlier, how many times will I literally come back every week and say the same thing? And then one day somebody, you can literally see in their face the light bulb came on. And sometimes you have a light bulb come on, and then by the time you get to the parking lot, it goes back out. But eventually it'll come on, stay on, it'll become what you are.
That happens when people get sober, by the way.
Mm.
Yep, you can see it in their eyes when the light bulb comes back on.
Yeah, sure. All right, so paragraph 12. Bring then all forms of suffering to him who knows that everyone is like the rest. And so he's inviting us, bring all forms of suffering to him. Well, when you're being attacked, irritated, all the ways the ego can pull you in, is your first response, bring it to him. Some of us are getting a little quicker on that, but not usually the first response. The first response is, how dare he did this, and I better go tell them, and we go through the litany of trying to be in control of the situation, and then maybe, a week later, it'll dawn on you, oh, I could have asked for help. And then slowly it dawns on you more and more quickly. And once again, you can't make that go faster than it happens, because when we're coming from that place, it's because of the addiction to the ego. But as we keep asking, we are literally disengaging the ego, and we're making this more and more solid. And you only have one quarter every instant. It's either going in here or it's going in here. And whichever one we put into the bank account for is the one that's going to grow. Well, when we first started this storyline, all of our coins went over here and continued to be replaced every day with more and more and more and more and more and more coins. Now we hear about the course and go, oh, I've got my quarter, I'm going to put it over here. Oh, I don't see much happening over here, this doesn't change much. Well, what's going to continue to come back is what we ordered, which is this. So then the practice becomes, okay, I'm looking at what I invested in, it's going to show up in my face. Am I going to believe that's real, or am I going to recognize it's a dream? And most of the time, I'll still recognize it as a dream because I'm just so addicted to the dream. Until we start building up more and more investment in the truth, and then this will begin to override. And just like this is automatically, this will eventually be automatic. And I love the example of learning how to drive. Most of us, when we were learning how to drive, you put your 10 and 2 and you make sure all the windows and mirrors and everything were right, and you looked all over. Well, now we drive somewhere and we hardly even know how we got here. And that's how automatic this will become. But right now, that's how automatic this is. And pulling ourselves away from the automaticness of the ego thought system takes an effort from where we are right now. And this is just, bam, 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 it just keeps on running. And to pull it and stop it and go, wait, no, we're not going to go there this time. And again, bring all forms of suffering to him. I mean, that's pretty easy. I just bring everything that makes me miserable to him. But why is it I don't even remember to do that? And once again,
When we're saying him, are we saying,
Holy Spirit.
the Holy
God?
Spirit, yeah. Yeah. And for anybody that has an issue with the word him in the Course,
Resistance.
yeah, right. And I've literally heard of people that went through the entire book, and everywhere where it said him, they scratched it out and put her because it was a woman and she wanted her part and whatever. Just simply look at it as that's the terminology within our culture that's used, but God does not have a sex. He's just part of one gender. Thank you. And that's just the terminology here, but it's just the memory
No, I was
within
just thinking, you just said in the form of I, which is Jesus.
Right.
And, it just said to him.
Right. Yep. And notice it's capitalized. All right. And again, this idea, bring then all forms of suffering to him who knows that everyone is like the rest. So in other words, all suffering, all pain, no matter how big or small, are all the same. You're either at peace or you're not at peace. He sees no differences where none exist, and he will teach you how each one is caused. And how they're caused is the choice for the ego. The effect is what gets played out in the world or the screen of our lives. And, we all know we've been somewhere where, let's say somebody's really upset with somebody in the room, and you're not upset with that person in the room. The person in the room is just being the person in the room. Everyone has an interpretation of what that person represents by their belief system. So where does the problem lie? Once again, none has a different cause from all the rest, and all of them are easily undone by a single lesson truly learned. So our whole process with the Course is learning the lesson that we set this up, and now I can unset this up. Salvation is a secret you have kept but from yourself. and then blamed it on somebody else. So anytime you think you're lily white, just the fact that you're blaming your brother on something you did is right there enough to convince you, or hopefully, that it's the problem lies within me. And I give the example very often of, I stole some candy from the candy store, I run home, put it in my drawer, the police come to my door, and I said, Kathleen did it. So they get Kathleen and put her in jail, but the whole time, I know I'm guilty. And that's basically the format of this whole process. I make my brother guilty, so it appears that I'm innocent. How could any one of us, if we were consciously aware of the storyline and the game we're playing, possibly feel good about ourselves? Not going to happen. But because we put this all on a very subconscious level, I don't know that that's what I'm doing to my brother. I think I'm God, and I'm going to tell this brother what to do and how he should do it, and then all will be good in the world. But not so. Salvation is a secret you have kept from yourself. The universe proclaims it so. Everywhere I turn, literally everywhere we turn, this setup is getting played out perfectly. Why would I ever question that? Until the pain becomes too intense. Yet to its witness you pay no heed at all. Well, how do I pay no heed at all to all the witnesses that proclaim that somebody's attacking me, calling me names, you name it, the government, whatever form it comes in? How do I come to the point where I am not affected by any of that? That's not an easy process on my own. But
That's the only question you really have about life. Why me?
Oh, yeah.
How come, what's all, they're hurting me. Why are they, I didn't do anything. Why do I have to pay that money or whatever? It's
Yep.
just, that's the only question that keeps after us. And we'll get to the end of our life and still not be able to answer that question.
Correct. Isn't that delightful?
Marianne,
Yep.
I just want to share one more
Sure.
thing. I watch like 2020 love stories. I've noticed when I'm watching TV sometimes, and like somebody did some horrific thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then the parents or the relatives get to say something to that person, or they would say, "What if you had something to say to them?
Right.
What would you say?" And I can't tell you how many people say, "I hope they rot in hell."
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll never forgive them. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I keep waiting for one person to say,
I forgive you.
Yes, it's so
Yep.
sad.
And we've heard in the news occasionally when one person will do that. But yeah, and people think if they rot in hell, I'll be okay.
Yes.
They don't see that in that moment, they're the ones that are rotting in hell.
Yeah, they're
Yep.
the ones who are suffering the most. Yeah.
And if you say that,
From their own opinion.
From their own hate. In that moment, I'm hating that person.
Exactly.
So
And-
I'm in pain.
And the way they learn their way out of it is to be with someone who doesn't share that opinion.
Yep.
Someone who has another way they're following that you don't even have to say what the way is, but you're following it, and they can see it. They can see another way through your response, and then they might be at least you're not going to be upset anymore by what they're thinking they're doing because you have this other way, which is really been very intense and interesting. That's what sustains us, is that other way. We don't have to keep, you do keep focusing on it, but you don't, it's gonna be there, it's there, and the other people are still lost. And then you're the one who can,
Represent.
you're centered and you're okay, and you see it as a passing dream in the world, and then they catch on to that without you telling them what you're
Yep.
studying or what you're reading or which
Yep.
page to read. They just catch on to how your other way is working differently.
Yeah, there's nowhere in the Course where Jesus asks us to be an evangelist.
And Kathleen, another thing that came for me was, and this is the hard part of the Course, is where do I do that?
Yes.
Who am I not letting off the hook, including this?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, and I always think of it as, back to the drawing board. If I see it out there, what in me
gotta
needs
be
to
in
be
me.
healed, yeah. And once again, it's not me that heals it. It is me that recognizes that I'm projecting it out there and I want to see it differently.
Rose, what do you mean, letting off the hook, what's what you said?
When Kathleen was sharing about watching 2020 and seeing, someone who's a victim of a crime or whatever, and they're able to face the person that did this, and they say to them, rot in hell. I want you to rot in hell.
Right.
For me, the practice is, if I'm thinking that, if I'm having a reaction to that, I'm the one watching the show and I'm having a reaction to this person saying, rotten hell, where am I doing that in my life? Who am I wishing would rotten hell?
Right. And oftentimes, we're not even aware, but as we keep digging, as we keep examining, it'll rise to the surface and you'll become aware that, yeah, I got that just as much as the next guy does.
So Kathy, are you thinking about your neighbor one day?
No, I'm thinking about my family.
Mm.
I'm thinking about the nursing home. I'm thinking about all the horrible things, what people did to my parents. I'm thinking about all that. Do I still have some anger there? Yeah.
Yep.
I do.
Sure.
And can I forgive them? I'd like to.
Not yet, and that's fine. That's, when I can get to that place where I'm not ready for this yet, and Ken drives us home. The reason I'm not ready for this now is I'm too frightened.
Mhm.
And fear is not a sin.
Yep.
So when I can get to that point of, you know what, I can't do this right now, and it's okay.
So 2020 is cathartic for you, huh?
However, exactly what you're saying, the pain of unforgiving them has
Keeps it alive.
hurt me so much.
You're
Yes.
rotting in hell.
Yes.
Literally.
Yes.
Oh.
I hear you.
Because I can't change it, I can't fix it, it's
Yeah.
done,
Right.
it's over,
Yeah.
it's,
I hear you.
but I carry it like Katie Byron, or Byron Katie, it's like
Yep.
I carry it with me.
Yep. Well, and I'm, again, not making light of the experience you're having, Kathleen, because, as a human being, it's a very difficult classroom. But if we really got that this was a dream, or we were acting out in a play, your family members chose the part and you chose the part that you're playing. Well, if we really got that, this would be no big deal, but we don't believe it. And so as we keep asking, we then become more engaged in the understanding of how he sees it instead of how we see it.
So even when I was fighting for my parents, that was still my part in the play.
Correct.
Yep.
And I would say fighting for your parents wasn't the problem. Being affected by the outcome from your family was something, or is something you need to look at. Because it's never that we don't do things in the world, but if it doesn't turn out the way we think it should, that's where we really need to see there's still a hook in there. Yeah.
That's how we know we have something else to do. And then what else would you do if you couldn't? It's almost like it becomes a wonderful thing to do is to unhook the hooks, to see what is it getting me? What should I do with it? You just sit there and you ask all those questions, or you write about it. I mean, I've written pages and pages and pages about some stupid little thing that somebody did to me. So it's very, then you go deeper and deeper into it. And then that's where the answer is. You can't just say, I'm just gonna forget about it, that's it. So you're subject only to your own desire to figure out, or to have someone help you get to the bottom of how that's not gonna be the way you feel anymore.
Yeah.
Well, there's actually no logic to
No.
it.
There's no logic to
Like,
any of
For me
this.
to be like, oh man, I hate those people, I will never forgive them, I will go after them the rest of my life, it's like pointless.
There's,
Yeah.
like Marianne just said, there's absolutely no logic, and that's a wonderful awareness.
Yep. And the bottom line, again, is who's suffering? And when I realize what I'm doing is causing me to suffer, then we're more and more willing to turn it around and let it go. Because you literally, when Jesus talks about we're weary, we're walking in the desert and it's painful. Eventually you need to have water, and if you don't have water, you're going to die. And the water would be, choosing for the Holy Spirit. And we just can't do it on your own any longer.
And also where we started the conversation before was about how mindless it is.
Yeah.
We're not aware of it. So if you see the other people having done something in a certain way as mindless, I find that to be helpful. Because we're mindless about a lot of things that are going on.
Oh gosh,
these people
huge.
they were just mindless. They weren't like out to get anybody. They weren't like actively trying to be harmful. They were just mindless. They only had so much energy, so much time. I watched my mother go through things, and my sister took it a lot harder than I did. And she just felt they were just stupid. She just had all these words for them. And they were just not, and then we finally have come to, that they just weren't educated. They are mindless. They're young people, most in the care of my mother.
Right.
Young people who are just, they don't even, this is a job they get paid for. It's the first job they have. They don't even like people, and they're working with my mother. And I felt that my mother forgave them a lot. She just understood the source of it better at that time.
Right.
But they're just mindless. They're not mean-spirited. They'll joke around with their friends, but just ignore what you want.
And once again, everyone is looking through the very limited lens they have, and they believe, your family members believe what they were doing was absolutely, positively the best, the most loving, and the right thing to do, just as you did. Yep.
As a former lawyer, I can say that I can point to where people made mistakes, even deliberately.
Right.
So, or were mean or whatever.
Right.
I used to go to nursing homes a lot, because I was on the older person's unit for a period of time. But in the end, you realize they don't know what they're doing. I can make up a story that, this is their, this is the first time they've ever dealt with my mother, so this is how they act, and they don't know how to deal with her, but I know how to deal with her.
Right. Yep.
But, I listen to my aunts talk about my mother, I think of this a lot. And that's where the detachment really, really does help. And I heard someone, he gave one of his favorite sayings earlier today. He said, I have permission to let myself out of jail.
Amen. Amen. And we also have to factor in, and I know this is a little hard to digest, that everyone in the world has chosen classrooms to work on and live through. That when I look at, I may decide that's not the way it's supposed to be, and it's exactly the perfect way it's supposed to be. And I'm not saying that's easy to take in.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because I realize that, because I'm looking at people and saying, why are they doing that? And
Oh,
then
gosh.
people, well, oh no, this is in front of me because this is part of my tableau.
Absolutely.
I did this too, for some particular reason. I don't know what it is, but that's why they're in front of me.
That's why they're in front of you, and they're affecting you to whatever degree they're affecting you, yes. And that's when you know that's where I've got work to do.
Yeah, and the paradox is nothing is going on anyway.
Well, there you go. Isn't that special? Well, but but it doesn't feel like it. And as I said earlier, we have to respect exactly where we are. And it's not about pretending I'm not being affected. It's about, let's work with what is affecting me, because there's a classroom here. There's a learning opportunity here that when I get it, and as he said, he's going to keep bringing the same lesson to us over and over and over, and until we get it, not as a, boy, you're bad and I'm going to give you this lesson, but as this lesson is going to take you to the freedom of knowing who you are.
So it's the same lesson over and over again, just presented differently.
Yes, and for many of us, it can actually be the same lesson, because we're so wrapped up in our shit, excuse the expression, that we don't, the whole ego doesn't have to work very hard to bring you another one because this one's working so well. But I assure you, if you get that one solved and you're not done, the ego will find you another, gift to play with.
Well, and it is your responsibility to get to zero. That's all you have to do.
There you go.
Yeah, that's all you have to do in this life, because when you get to zero and there's nothing there, you're free and you feel the peace
Right.
of God. It doesn't matter if you're up on a mountain someplace, if you're in a submarine, it doesn't matter what's going on. Because when you get to zero, I can't do anything about this, the Holy Spirit,
Yes.
I give it to you, unless I want to keep crucifying myself with it. And then you get to zero, and then, time has collapsed, and I like to, I was brought up on the word heaven, but, it's just the awareness of oneness, that everybody has, these young people seem like they're harassing my mother, but that wasn't true. So that's where peace and heaven are, and you don't have to run around and do a lot of things. You don't get your nose out of warp, and you don't get your sciatic nerve problem goes away, and things just then become more real.
Once again, this is a process, and you don't have to figure out how the healing or forgiveness will take place. Our job, as he says, bring then all forms of suffering to him who knows that everyone is like the rest. Once we recognize this is what I've chosen, and I'm tired of this, I don't know how to figure this out, I don't know how to heal this, then you hand it over to him and he will take care of it. And, unfortunately, that's not always, like our button on our TV that the moment I touch it, it turns on the TV. My job is to keep doing this. Eventually, the reflection of that healed nature will start to reflect into your life. And all of a sudden, things that used to be challenging will just be like gliding on ice. Yeah.
Sorry if I may say something else, I watch I Survive sometimes.
Right.
You've seen that? But those are interesting stories to me, because at the end they asked them why they thought they survived. And it wasn't anything they figured out. They didn't figure out how to survive, they didn't figure out how to get away.
Okay.
It was just something, I think they were so beat up, shot up, whatever, that they just, you know what I mean, they just follow something.
Yep.
And they could die, it's like they totally surrendered.
Yep.
Well, that's what's in the power of now, the book Power of Now, that when you're in all this trouble and you just let it go, that's something, you make a space, an energy in the universe that rushes in there, and that's the present moment. The power of now is now. Holy shit, I'm falling out of this airplane, what am I gonna do next?
But when we're talking about that, the difference is, this is my life. There's a bazillion things that can call my name, and I will go chasing after that. And the difference is, I don't know. Well, I don't know from somebody who's addicted to chaos and everything is not very comforting. And that's why the concept of the little willingness is one moment where you can't stand this anymore, and you go, help, and then you immediately, bring this back down because it's too foreign, it's too uncomfortable. But each time we are able to do that, it brings us closer and closer to that empty screen where he can write the true story. And with that, it's time to go. So we will continue to play next week. All right, so everybody take a nice big deep breath. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you, in which there are no illusions and where none can ever enter. Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? The sleep of forgetfulness is only the unwillingness to remember your forgiveness and your love. Let us not wander into temptation, for the temptation of the Son of God is not your will, and let us receive only what you have given, and accept but this into the minds that you created and which you love. Amen. All right, we will see everyone next week.
Thanks, Marianne.
You're welcome.